The effect of crime can continue for a long time after sentencing for some victims. It's important to remember that even if someone is serving a life sentence or preventive detention, they will be considered for parole at some point. Calculation of the release date is quite complicated, and it needs to take into account the amount of time that someone has spent on remand, for instance, prior to being sentenced.
If someone has been sentenced to prison for 2 years or less, they must be released after serving half their sentence. If they've been sentenced to more than 2 years in prison, they will be considered for parole after they've served 1/3 of their sentence, unless there's a set non-parole period. Victims of some serious crimes can join the Victim Notification Register, which will notify them of changes in the status of the prisoner and also notify them before parole hearings. To find out how to register, call the Victims of Crime Information Line or Victim Support.
Victims who are on the register can be advised by the department if the prisoner is released or is released on home leave, or if their circumstances change in some significant way during their sentence.
At least I could then go, right, he'll be out on the street now, so I will need to be prepared that I might see this person one day. And that did occur some years later, and I thought the ground was going to swallow me up, but, I handled it.
Victims who are on the register are notified before the parole board hearing that the hearing is coming up. That gives them the opportunity to make a submission to the hearing.
They asked me if I wanted to appear, and I said no, I didn't see the point. For me it was about getting the verdict. He served his time, and I think, he deserved the right to be able to get on with his life within reason, as long as it wasn't in close proximity to me.
If you're a victim on the register, you really need to keep us up to date with your contact details, including your address and phone number. Now, I do need to emphasise that all that information is kept private and confidential, but it is our way of contacting victims to advise them of events.
I'm the chairperson of the New Zealand Parole Board. The board considers prisoners for release on parole. Parole is the managed release of prisoners back into the community during the term of their imprisonment. If they break the conditions, we can bring them straight back to prison if they become risky in any way. Victims can have a say about parole. If they're registered, they are entitled to information about when people are coming up to be seen for parole. They can make submissions. Sometimes people just want to write to us. Sometimes they have a video conference with us. Sometimes they come and see us and they tell us what they think about it, and particularly about safety issues. We usually see them in places like the parole board offices. We have the meeting with the victim separately, not in prison and not with the prisoner there. We give them the chance to talk to us, and sometimes they will have prepared something which they want to read. Sometimes they'll just want to speak from the heart. Sometimes they prefer just to be asked questions. Whatever suits them, we'll do. Then we might have some questions of them. At the end of all that, we have to talk about how we can safely convey what they've said to the prisoner. Victims are certainly able to bring support people with them. We welcome that. We found it really helpful. Some people who are not registered as victims still hear that someone's coming up for parole. They have an interest. They might actually be victims but haven't wanted to be registered, and they may wish to give us information, and they would write to us. We'd happily receive that.
If an offender has been sentenced to prison, they are likely to be released at some point. You can make a submission to the parole board when an offender is being considered for parole. If you are on the Victim Notification Register, you will be told about the hearing. You can get help to write your submission from the police, victim support or other support agency you may be working with, and you can have support people with you at the hearing itself. You may also be eligible for financial support for you and a support person to attend the hearing. Ask Victim Support for more information. Call the Victims of Crime Information Line to find out about support agencies in your area, or call Victim Support.